Vince McMahon doing Stand Back on that TV show, he's going for it. He is dancing like no man has danced before. What are you guys thinking backstage? Like, the owner of the company, the guy who pays your checks, he's got women, he's got Hogan on the trombone. Like, what is the reaction backstage?
I just remember when we watched it at home after, I remember my dad looked at me and said, so Vince has come out of the closet, has he? I've always laughed about how my dad perceived, he couldn't believe Vince dancing and all that stuff and singing with his, like, such emotion for that song.
When you look at your relationship with Vince now, do you feel that you guys have been able to kind of mend things and just kind of, like, have you been able to find a middle ground and go, we're okay with each other?
I think so. It all rests on Vince's shoulders. Like, what happened wasn't between me and Shawn so much, or me and Earl Hebner, or me and... I think Triple H had a lot to do with it. Maybe more so than as much to do as anyone else. But, I loved WWE. I loved my time there. Everything I did with him, all my matches, all the opportunity I got, it was very. I had a special relationship with Vince. I think when I was champion, he made me champion. I was like his boy, and I had a very much like a father-son kind of, like, I really worked hard for Vince, and I know that I've had wrestlers or fans talk to me tonight about different matches I had. I worked really hard every night for Vince. I gave 100% every night, like every single night. I never cut stuff out. A lot of wrestlers give a A match, and if it's a smaller town, the next day they do a B match and a C match. And for me, I gave an A match every night, and I was as hardworking as anybody that ever worked for that company, and I had as much love for the WWF and the fans that built that company. And I was a WWF guy all the time, always was. And so even when the screw job happened, it was always kind of like, they don't need to do that. They don't need to screw me, because I prefer to work. I would rather work with the company. Even Shawn, I tried, in the months leading up to the screw job, I did everything I could do to bury the hatchet with Shawn and smooth things out. I think me and Shawn kind of smoothed things out a little bit, even though I don't think it was sincere maybe on his end. But I tried to really, I apologized to him about things I said in my interviews about him, because even though I would go to Shawn all the time and say, Shawn, is it okay if I go out there and talk about you posing for Playgirl? Is that all right? He would always go, sure, go ahead. Go with it, and then he would watch me go out and say a bunch of stuff, and I'd come back to the dressing room, he looked like he was in tears, and he was so hurt by and I was like, I remember kind of knowing, and I think I can say honestly that I knew I was zinging him and kind of getting under his skin with that stuff, but Shawn had a lot of problems in those days, and he wasn't the easiest guy to love either. So, I think as we got closer to the screw job, I was trying my best to kind of move forward with Shawn, and but I think actually when I wrestled SummerSlam and wrestled Undertaker and I had that match, and when I spit on him, I remember telling him in the dressing room when we sort of planned it out, I said, I got to do something that would really piss you off. It has to be something serious. And we tried thinking of things, and if I said, I've spit on you, that would piss you off. And it's like, yeah, that would piss me off. And it's like, so I'll spit. I said, I won't spit on you. I said, I'll aim right for your shirt. I'll hit you right here. But you wrestle Undertaker for 30 minutes in a wrestling match, and it's like running a marathon or something. You're pretty frothy in there. And so the time came, and it was such, that's what I love about that match with Undertaker at SummerSlam. It's all about timing. There was like a split second that I had to spit, and if you watch that match, you can see me. I'm trying to find, my mouth is so dry. I'm trying to find something to. And it's like 3, 2, 1. I remember I hocked out this horker. It was like 2 twin oysters. And one hit Shawn right on the chest, like as planned, as specified. right on the chest, and the other one was tied, connected to it, but it flew up and hit him right on the face. It was hanging off Shawn's nose. If you remember when he was counting, he kept trying to wipe it off, but it was like the snot that wouldn't go away, or the spit that wouldn't go away, and and that wasn't intentional. And I knew, I said, that's gonna start all the shit over again. I knew it. And I remember Shawn said no problem and all that, but I think after he watched it on TV and it like reminded himself that it happened, it was like, yeah, that did piss me off. My relationship with Shawn at that time never got much better from that point. From the spit kind of started the war all over again. But going back to your point was that I really think that I think I was right in everything I did relating to the screw job and all that. I was right, and I had the right reason. Shawn had basically told me leading into that match, when I first found out we were wrestling, I came up to Shawn. Because me and Shawn were not really on talking terms. We'd had a little fisticuff, cat fight in the dressing room about, I don't know, February of that year. And this was quite a ways later, but we were barely talking to each other, and he was refereeing that match, and I was trying to get on a better understanding with Shawn. And I was trying not to escalate tensions between. I was trying to minimize them. And I remember I came up. He refereed one of my matches, a triple threat match in San Jose, California. And he came up. I came up to him and I said, Shawn, I heard. He shook my hand after the match, and he thanked me for the match. He goes, thanks for the match. And that was the first 3 words or dialogue that we'd had since we had the little cat fight, which was meant, I thought, took as a sign of like, okay, we were finally kind of talking to each other again. And I said to Shawn, I said, I heard we're wrestling at Survivor Series in a couple of weeks from now. And I said, just want you to know, I have no problem losing to you, dropping the belt to you. Whatever they want to do is fine with me. I said, I just want you to know you're safe in the ring with me, that whatever issues we've had with each other, there won't be any fisticuffs, or you don't have to fear that maybe I'm going to kick you in the face and punch you out, or because things like that can happen. I said, I've always been a professional, and I just want you to know whatever they want to do is fine with me. And Shawn looked at me and said, he goes, I appreciate that. I just want you to know I'm not willing to do the same thing for you. And that's where the screw job happened. Everything that happened after that, and with those Vice film documentary that came, Dark Side, they missed all of that. They're so stupid. You give them the interview that tells them all what really happened, and they're too stupid to even understand what. So they basically digressed and kind of told a more convoluted story about the screw job. But that was what it was all about. And when Vince said, no, you're going to... I went and saw Vince 2 or 3 days later, and I said... He goes, yeah, we're thinking you're going to drop the belt to Shawn at Survivor Series. And I said, I'm not dropping the belt to Shawn. He just said to me 2 days ago that he would refuse to do the same thing for me. And in the wrestling business, when someone is not willing to feed your family and then comes to you and say, oh, but I want you to feed mine, it doesn't work like that. If you are not willing to do business with me, then I'm not willing to do business for you. And that's where the impasse came. And I always believed I was right. And I think it could have been figured out. Like I wasn't a real, difficult guy to cooperate with. And, I think in the end, Triple H and all them, Vince and them squeezed me out and pushed me out of the company. And I was like, okay. And Vince called me after I signed my contract with WCW, and he goes, I remember Vince called me the night before, like the night that my contract, it's at 12 o'clock midnight, I had to sign my deal or else kind of thing. And I called Vince and I said, I got WCW's contract. It just came through my fax machine. And I got it right there. All I got to do is sign it. And I called Vince and said, I don't want to sign this contract. I want to stay with WWF. And just tell me what you're going to do with me for the next, tell me what's in store for me in the next year or 2 or 3. What's my story going to be? And he said, well, this is what we're going to do. And I remember Vince laughing, like he had that Vince McMahon laugh and chuckle on the phone. And it was like he said, we're going to put you with Shawn. He beats you. Then we put you with Shawn again, another rematch, next pay-per-view after that, and he beats you. and we put you with Shawn. You keep challenging Shawn, he beats you 4, 5, 6 times in a row. And finally you say, Shawn, I want one more match, and if I don't beat you, I'm going to retire from wrestling. And so then I wrestle Shawn, and then I win that match. And that's what he said he had in mind for me. And I remember listening to it and I'm going, that doesn't sound very promising to me. It almost sounds like when it gets to that match that I'm supposed to win, that they'll screw me out of that and beat me or change their mind or whatever. So I kind of told me, like, you better get out, like, pack your bags and go to WCW, because there's no plan. They're going to screw you here. Like, it was basically, we're going to screw you over as much as possible, and that's what we have in mind for you. So I signed, and then Vince called me the day after I signed with WCW, all happy that I signed, and they didn't have to worry about me anymore. And he goes, well, we're thinking we're going to drop the belt to Shawn. And I said, no. I said, I stick with what I said to you before. I'm not dropping the belt to Shawn, because he wouldn't drop the belt to me. And he would refuse to do it for me. And that's where we had the impasse. And like I say, I think we could have probably worked it out, but I stood my ground. And I think...
You guys are friends now. You guys have been able to kind of get past that.
Me and Vince?
Yeah.
Well, I think what happened was I knocked him out. But I'll say this much. I think that knocking Vince McMahon out, he's always had respect for me ever since. It's respect. Like, you know, I think he respects guys that stand up to him. And Vince is a very dominant kind of guy, and does. Vince is a. I have a lot of respect for Vince too. I also know he's pretty shady, but you know, and I think there's been a certain understanding from me and Vince that goes beyond everything. And I think Vince is like. He admires me for standing up to him, and I'm the only guy that ever punched him out. I always think of Jimmy Snuka shaking my hand one time and going, he goes, a lot of guys talk about knocking Vince McMahon out. He goes, the only one that ever did it.